Welcome to the New Planner Podcast, where it's all about helping you successfully enter the financial planning profession and accelerate your financial planning career. This podcast will help you understand the profession, become familiar with the various career paths available to you, and avoid the mistakes that limit your success. Join your host, Caleb Brown, to explore the human side of creating a successful planning career through interviews, personal experience, and insights from the trenches. Let's get started.
Welcome to the 188th episode of the New Planner Podcast. This is Caleb Brown, your host. My guests today are Donald Capone and John Kvale with JK Financial in Dallas, Texas. Donald and John stopped by the show today to share how they got started in the financial planning profession, became partners, and have worked together successfully for the last 22 years. Listen as Donald talks about how financial planning wasn't on his radar, and his affinity for math and numbers led him to start as an accounting major, how he got connected initially with John, and then convinced John to hire him as an intern. Donald goes on to describe what he did for John in the early days, why he stayed on full-time with John after graduating from college, how he has gravitated towards the investment side of the business, and why he has stayed with the same firm since he graduated. John shares how he got started in the insurance channel, then pivoted to the broker-dealer channel, then ultimately the fee-only RIA channel, and how he grew the business in the early years, why he hired Donald, and how he integrated Donald into client meetings and positioned him for success with clients. Listen to the end two, where they share some thoughts on how they handle disagreements, whether to pursue the CFP or CFA, and some other tips for new planners. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Donald Capone and John Kvale. Hey, Donald. Hey, John. Welcome to the New Planner Podcast.
Thanks for having us. Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, man. Hey, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Hey, John, you and I just reconnected at the NAPA conference, and it just kind of spurred a thought on, we need to get these guys on the show. So I'd love for maybe you to start us off with just how you got into financial planning and where the business is right now.
Okay. It was something that I wanted to do. I didn't really know what it looked like. Golly, I'm going back. I mean, I'm showing my age a little bit. Kind of a funny story. I started at what I thought was a financial planning firm. This was a division of Donaldson, Lufkin, Jenrette way back in the day, and it was equitable securities. The emphasis was much more on insurance at the time. But I remember how I was going to build my book, and it was like something out of a movie. Went through all the licensing, which back in the day was, quite challenging. You didn't have all the electronics then that you did. And so I went through all the tests and everything, and I was finally ready to go and open my shingle and start building a neat business. And I remember my manager at the time, he walks over, and I was in a little, like just a 4x4 little square, like you would see almost like a boiler room. And he drops a white phone book. A lot of your listeners may not even know, but they were like, in the day, they were like 4 inches, maybe 6 inches deep. And he drops it on my desk and he says, "All right, start calling." And I was like, really? And so I did have a vision. I made it through that. That was pretty grueling. I don't even think you can start a business that way anymore, but that was pretty grueling. And so I had a vision, and where this all feathers into the story, we used to send out these mailers way back in the day, and there was a mortgage acceleration plan. Mortgage rates, everybody crows about mortgage rates being at 6 or 7 now. They were 10 or 12 back in the day. We had this program, and it was a little bit, anyway, you got leads from sending out all these mailers. Well, who answers a lead but Donald's mom? His folks answered a lead. So I was in Dallas, grew up in Waxahachie. They had moved to Waxahachie. I shuttled myself down there. His mom and dad were one of my first ever clients while I was at the firm. Still kind of had the vision, and the vision was what I would call financial planning today and what we do today. But it looked so much different then. I mean, there were very few fee-only, fee-based type of programs. Everything was commission, but I still kind of had the vision. And so I spent about 5 or 6 years with a very large firm, actually 6 years with a very large firm, same firm, and then ultimately had a client base. And that was where the journey started. And there's a good story. I won't ruin it. I'll let Donald kind of tell the story on, how that occurred.
Yeah, Donald, go ahead. How did you get started in financial planning?
So mine's a little maybe less of a vision than John had, but true to form. I remember, John coming into my parents' dining room to talk financial planning, big picture. My parents are really good about trying to instill in me and my two younger brothers, what good financial literacy was. Even at 10, when my parents first met John, they still kind of talked about who he was, what he was. He was a financial planner. He was there to help our family be on track and have goals and set financial goals. And so they talked a lot to me about that. And so that was early on. And I was aware of what that was and kind of the need for it. But honestly, being a kid, I wasn't really like thinking, that far into the future. I was probably thinking about, the next day at school or, what I was going to do with my buddies that afternoon or something.
You mean at 10 years old, you weren't thinking like, hey, I want to be a financial planner?
No, that I feel like, maybe some of them do, but no, I was not that visionary where, maybe Elon Musk or something like that, where you have this whole life plan by the time you're like 9. I was flying by the seat of my pants. But so anyways, fast forward, I'm in high school. We had to start picking electives. Again, my parents were both big on having a plan, trying to know what you're going to do and have a goal of not just showing up to college or something like that. Have an idea of what you're trying to obtain while you're there. So I was always interested in numbers and math, and my dad's a mathematician. He was kind of a science guy. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be like just a math guy. So I started taking an accounting class in high school, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I like the symmetry of like kind of balancing everything out and talking about how that can kind of go into business valuation and stuff like that. So that was my senior year. I applied and got into UT's business school, which is where I ended up going for college.
UT Austin, right? UT
Austin. Yep. Yeah. It had just become Macomb's School of Business, I think the year before I went there. So I went there in 98. And so my folks were like, why don't you go talk to John? We're like, he does all this. By that point, John had just left Equitable. I think he came over maybe the year before and kind of broke away to LPL as, the burgeoning fee only, I guess, back in those days, but kind of became an RA and broke away from a true commission-based kind of platform. And so they were like, why don't you go talk to John? He knows, he's doing this. He can give you some insight. And so I went up, interned with John, kind of showed up at his office one day and said, hey, what do you do? Tell me about it. And let me see if this is what I like to do and want to like pursue while I'm in college. And, fortunately, John had just switched over. So, he was busy. It was a new book of business. And so there was plenty of stuff to do. And so I was just kind of that probably annoying high school kid that was there asking questions all the time, but was eager to get my feet wet and just kind of see what financial planning, investing, that kind of stuff was all about and see if it was something I really wanted to tackle.
And to add a couple of things interesting, Caleb, the first meetings were in suit and tie, at his parents' house. My, how we've changed now. And those intern jobs that he had multiple jobs that he was doing during the summer. So he'd whiz in, and it was 30, 40 mile drive each way, it was
walks actually to North Dallas. So, it was a good, probably 45-minute drive, an hour, depending on how bad traffic was. But yeah, it was definitely a drive.
To come in and file paper trade blotters and, confirms and stuff back in the day, it's stuff that nobody even has to do anymore. But I think it was interesting. And from my perspective, not to jump in and steal your thunder, but Donald's always enjoyed the investment side of it, and that's been his forte. And I'll step back and let you finish the story because it gets even better, in my opinion, on what happened as Donald went through college. By the way, the business, I spent 5 or 6 years with Equitable, Equico, Donaldson, Lufkin, Genret. That all got kind of not blown up, but went to Linsco Private Ledger when it was actually it was first Linsco and then it was Private Ledger. So we were really at the early ages of that and stayed at Linsco for about 10 years, just to give your listeners some kind of vision, and then moved from there to TD Ameritrade and have been at TD Ameritrade until the recent merger to Schwab. So we were at Schwab. When we were at Linsco Private Ledger, 98% of our business was fee-only business, so it was a natural progression. We jumped to TD Ameritrade when it was TD Waterhouse, and then it literally in the move, it went from TD Waterhouse to TD Ameritrade. So lots of moves there, but that kind of gives you a timeline of what we've been, and I'll hand it back over to you, Donald.
Yeah, so I got a taste of it leading up to, starting college the summer before I moved to Austin, and felt comfortable enough. I'm in business school. You're taking plenty of intro classes, so I was just learning stuff. But again, probably hindsight, my parents didn't want a bored teenager, new college student twiddling his thumbs or getting into trouble while I'm home for winter and summer breaks. So they were like, if you're coming back from Austin, you got to do something. You're not sitting on the couch. I had to work through college. Fortunately, I did get some financial aid and that stuff as well, but I needed something to help pay for college. So they were like, you either getting a regular job or something else. And so I had kept in touch with John while I was at school. And I was like, look, what do you think? Do you need help? Can I intern? Can I come up for winter breaks? That was quicker, but at least it's coming to see how things are going. And then more, what about summers? Can I come, I'll work all summer, 8 to 5, I'll be there, do whatever you need me to do. Is that something that, one, if you're interested in, is it something that you'd like me to do? Is it something I can do? And so fast forward, I was there every summer, every winter break while I was in college, making phone calls to clients, learning how to make trades. I got my licensing while I was there. So John was able to sponsor me. So I went back, I think that was my sophomore year. I went back to UT my junior year, and all my buddies were like, what'd you do this summer? And I was like, well, I learned how to make trades. I got my Series 7. So I was one of the few kids that I knew that in the business school was able to make and be licensed to make trades and kind of learn that part of the business.
Well, you got to do what you guys were learning about.
Yeah, exactly. We would have a textbook and we would talk about it. And then I was like able to go, all summer, go practice that. And I had friends that interned at some of the larger firms, and they were basically kind of the grunt work and didn't get to really experience what life would be like when you graduate with a degree in business and are trying to either be an advisor or be a planner or do something in investments. It was kind of this mythical dream. No one knew what it was because you couldn't actually do it while you were in school. And fortunately, like John said, kind of luck had it where I was able to kind of do it in the summers and actually get some hands-on learning while I was also seeing it in the textbook. So it kind of got my brain a little bit faster.
Yeah, and the business is our business was growing about perfectly at the same time. And back in the day, I don't even remember how we did it, Donald. There were some hurdles that we had to jump through to get him to be able to take the 7, and he whizzed right through that. And then I was like, wow, this is really good. It would help him no matter what happened. And from our side, it went from, hey, Donald's coming in to, hey, when is Donald coming in for the summer?
Nice.
Which is, as a college student, that's not bad. To be able to get that much experience that quick. And it could have gone either way. It could have been like, it's just not for me. It's not what I want. But like John said, fortunately, the way John was growing his business at the time and the direction the firm was going at the time, I was on a good path. The firm was on a good path of our kind of similarities are aligned. This seems to be a good fit. I was a junior when the tech bubble burst in 2000. So leading up, and John and I, we share this story with clients and friends and all sorts. Leading up to 2000, everyone that was graduating was like, I'm getting 15 job offers. Everybody is like, we're getting 6 figures right out the bat. Like, this is the easiest job to ever get coming out of college. Like, yeah, this is going to be great. Like, I'll see where I go. Can go up to New York, do, kind of go wherever. And then the market crashes, tech bubble pops, and it went from you couldn't worry about saying no to interviews. They were just like throwing them in your face, and you were saying no because you had too many, and it went from crickets. And there were grad students at UT that were getting the interviews, but the undergrads, there was I think there were insurance brokers coming in to just trying to get interns and do some direct dialing stuff, and so. It was like, all right, coming back to John, let's keep interning. Let's keep, the business growing. Whatever you need me to do, learn. And I think my senior year, John was in the CFA program at the time. He's like, look, this is kind of the next phase of where I think the firm should go. We want to be investment managers as well. We just don't want to go on other people's recommendations. He's like, I want to. And he said, I think the way we've talked, you want to as well, be in control of what does a firm's value look like? What does a good investment look like? And shift the research end of things to kind of in-house and our control. And so my senior year, he was like, why don't you look into taking, CFA classes or try and see about taking the CFA exam? He's like, if you can do it while you're in school and know how to study, you haven't forgotten what it's like to study for a CFP or a CFA or some licensing. If you can do that while it's still, habits are still good. He said, try and get that and start that. So that was kind of piled on my senior year of some education and experience. And
wait, Donald, I want to go back to something. So you started the CFA program while you were still a senior at UT Austin?
My last semester of UT, the grad school, McCombs grad school, had a CFA exam prep class. And so I went to the professor. I knew the professor that ran the study program. And I said, look, can I audit the class? Can I just sit in? I'm thinking about taking it. I want to kind of get some exposure. And he said, buy the materials, come to class, and you can learn and study. And my last semester of my senior year, I was prepping for level 1 of the CFA exam and did that in graduation. And then the professor was like, well, if you're taking the class, you might as well try and take the exam. What's the point of not you're studying it? So I sat, level 1 was that summer after I graduated. So it was like late July, I think maybe early August of 2002. So it was just kind of, again, I was interested. I had a passion for it. So it was, why stop? Like in my early years, the more knowledge I could get, the more experience I could get. That was what I felt was important. And thankfully I had, John is a good mentor, was kind of pushing the way for me to keep going.
There's a lot there, and I want to come back to just kind of like the integration and sort of how the business grew. And John, your thoughts. But while we're on that, because John, you're a CFA and a CFP, so maybe I want to start with you because I get this question a lot in the recruiting business, and I also want to hear from Donald. What designation should people go for first?
It's changed. I would say it's very interesting. I just looked at, I have the diplomas on, you saw me kind of cut out of camera there. So I got my charter in 2003 and the financial planning in March of 94. So I'm aging. All your listeners will know. The answer is it depends. Our firm, not to drag this out too long, but we have some clients that we roll up our sleeves and we do all financial planning, which the hangover from tax season, Donald will know. It's not about trading stocks and, just tax season. But some clients come to us and they're like, I want an index fund. We're like, okay. And some clients come to us and say, unless you will build a portfolio of some, something, we have a lot of clients that like some sort of protected strategy. Well, that requires some expertise. And whichever direction you may gravitate to, it was really clear at the time. The Certified Financial Planner designation broadened my scope. I had a finance major, an accounting minor, and a communication minor. And so that gave me the splash to hit all the tentacles, but I could see the direction of the firm and quite frankly, Donald's love for it. So the CFA was the direction to go for him. I was trudging through the program and knew that it was going to be time consuming, and the longer you're out, the harder it is. So I can make a case that it's not a right or wrong answer. It depends on the person. At the time, and I know both of these have changed a lot, there is a lot more overlap in both of them, from my understanding. For me, being frontward facing, which Donald is as well, but kind of usually I'm the early frontward facing, having both, I still run into people that say, unless you have a CFA, we don't want to talk to you. Unless you have CFP, we don't want to talk to you. So it's nice to have both of them. Prospective clients. Yes, I still run into that. Did just a few weeks ago. So I would say if you want a broad, wider girth with a lot of depth, then you would go with the CFP. If you want just specific to the investments, then you would go with the CFA. There's more overlap, and quite frankly, being away from both of these programs for a long time, I think most of your listeners will find that the CFP is where they would want to go. Our firm is a little bit different. I mean, we have some study groups, and some of them would say, you're a dinosaur to pick out stocks. Well, we still have some clients that's what they want to do, and we're glad to do that, and Donald leads that. And I enjoy that aspect of it as well. We do a lot of research economically, just whether it's stocks or just allocation decisions from the economic side that we feel are important. We are certainly allocators, but we do rebalancing, and we're not just robots on the way we investment manage. Now, technology's helped us a lot keep our headcount down from a firm, but we do keep track of everything. So we'll roll up our sleeve. And I wouldn't challenge Donald to sit for the CFP because I don't know it right now, but a lot of the work that he does, reviewing, almost hundreds of tax returns every year, you've learned a lot of the, personal tax returns. You've learned a lot of that. And quite frankly, the CFA has helped with that. So for me as a business owner, I wouldn't have changed it the way I've done it. But for Donald, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. It was the perfect way for him to do it, and it was exactly perfect.
For me, I always joked with John more after the fact, but while I was going through it, I was like, interning, I don't necessarily like financial planning. That wasn't like where I was excited about being, with John and kind of seeing the business grow. I mean, I really did have a passion and a joy for the investing side of things and managing our clients' money. And so I never wanted to do the CFP. Now, being at the same firm for 22 years now, and it's become enjoyable to me. I mean, now I'm grown into the planning, and John and I talk about it all the time from a client standpoint. But early on, it was not where my passion was. So for me, it was like, okay, CFA makes sense. I want to learn about investing. That's where like my heart is. And so that kind of led me into making, it's a no-brainer. Like, I'll take it. I'll grind through it. We'll figure it out. But again, I've run across colleagues and friends, and at this point, we're starting to get clients' kids talking about graduating high school. And so talking to some of them, I think a lot of it is you have to follow where your heart is. That can't be your only leading factor, but you're going to do a lot better if you want to be a planner, like John said, and really kind of encompass a person's entire life cycle from early retirement through retirement, and accomplish all of those goals for them. I think a CFP is going to be where you should start 99% of the time. And that's going to give you the foundation to really, truly be a well-rounded planner and advisor. For me early on, it was just investments were where I wanted to be. That's where my, kind of passion was. And so I jumped straight to the CFA, and you do get some of the planning, but it's not nearly as detailed and robust of what I remember the CFP being back then.
Well, and Caleb, here's an interesting story that just happened in the last 2 weeks as well, where we're literally prepping for a client call, needed some distributions, where the client is, not to reveal too much information, but the client needed some money. There were capital gains versus taking a distribution from a bloated asset in an IRA. Donald quickly runs down the classes and said, wait a minute, we're in this tax bracket. Well, I have the tax bracket. I said, okay, they're in this tax bracket. They'll stay in this tax bracket. But look, I got to do capital gains. So it's all, if we sell from after tax, the capital gains are going to be about the same as the tax bracket. It all blended. It all kind of blends. And through, I guess, doing this for 20 plus years, he's a lot better at a lot of the planning stuff in certain areas than I am, quite frankly.
Donald, you did gloss over that earlier. I'm coming back to it. You said, I was been with the same firm 22 years.
We haven't quite finished the story. So no, and I feel like I'm trying to make the story as quick and to the point as possible. But when it scopes, the better part of, when John met me when I was first 10. So it's a very long scoop. I'm not ancient or anything like that, but, John's known me for 33 years at this point. So there's a lot in there. But yeah, so tech bubble burst, jobs kind of dried up. I had kept interning with John. So I was still coming in the summers, and we were still, I was getting the fortunate or unfortunate seat at the table to have conversations with clients about .com shares that they own overnight becoming zero. I was a junior in college and having to sit at, a conference table with John and listen to him have to say, look, this is kind of changing our plan for a little bit. And so I was exposed to all of that. And back at school, there weren't jobs coming to the undergrads. So I remember I think it was maybe spring break of my senior year of UT. I came up to Dallas. John and I met and had lunch. And I said, John, look, there aren't offers. There aren't really good jobs out there. There isn't anything in the market. What about me coming to work for you? Full time, I'll start the day after I graduate. I was like, I'll move out of Austin. I'll figure out a place to live, however it works. What about me coming to the firm? And, this was so early in John's, our firm's life cycle. I mean, we were growing, but it wasn't like, I don't think John had a plan of, okay, we're at the point now we can bring on another employee. And so he's like, let me think about it. And fortunately, I don't know how it worked, but we figured it out. I was able to come on full time. So that was June of 2002. And I hit the ground running. I'm sure John we didn't have as much work probably for me to do as we probably wanted. But like John said, we did share office space still with some other planners. And so I was really, what anybody needed, whatever I could do, I was trying to help. And again, just getting exposure to the business. And, that was a lot of years ago, a lot of AUMs ago, but it's been kind of growing ever since. And just.
Caleb, it's that old scenario, you say, don't not have kids because you can't afford them. It's it's a silly thing, but we agreed on this and we kind of looked at each other and we're going to make a run at this. I don't know how we're going to do it, but it was frightening for both of us because you're still in the middle of this .com bubble too.
Your revenue was probably not where you wanted it to be.
Well, it wasn't where it was. There was a reason all those jobs dried up, and here we are. We're like, hey, we can make this, but I think some of the reason that we're here together, and by the way, Donald's the heir apparent. If something happens to me, I always tell clients, you get a step up. You get a smarter. I mean, he takes over the firm, but at the time, it was pretty tough. We were joined at the hip, and honestly, maybe the truth to the story, part of the reason of the longevity is we've been through a lot of stuff together. But, good and bad times, and you learn what you're both made about, and you learn, there's compromises.
Yeah, I would say, Donald, don't you know Gen Y, millennial? I mean, you're supposed to have at least 7 jobs by now. So I'm really disappointed.
Everybody looks at me, even all my close friends here in Houston that I'm with all the time. They're like, how are you still at the same place? It's worked. It's been a great partnership. Part of it is the partnership with John, but also a lot of it is the partnership I've created with these clients. I mean, a lot of our clients, I would probably say, we're very fortunate that, I'd say probably 90% of the clients that we had when I started day one in 2002 still exist as clients today with our
Wow,
firm. So
that's really cool.
some of it is I don't know how I could ever leave them because seeing them grow, we're getting through, they were just starting working, and now John and I are helping them get into retirement. And so it's it makes sense to stay. There's nothing else out there that appeals.
And on that note too, it's interesting, the generation of clients, when their kids are now, a little bit chapter behind Donald, and it's a natural progression. They're like honored to have Donald talk to this next generation because we keep our eye on and I'm a member of a golf club, and they, about 10 years ago, they're like, hey, our club is dying because we've got too many older people in our client. And that was not that that's something that you want to make sure that you have longevity. And it's very interesting to see clients immediately enjoy, and Donald having a lot of times they don't want to talk to me because I'm kind of out of I don't do the TikTok, or I'm not exaggerating to make that, but there are a lot of clients that only want to talk to Donald, and that's exactly the way we want it.
Well, and talk to us about that a little bit more, John. When he first started out, and I know he'd interned and he'd been there, and his parents were clients, but what did you do to position him, 22-year-old kid who did pass the level 1 of CFA, so he's done some stuff, but really no experience? How did you position him and get him involved and integrated in the client meetings early on?
That's a good question. I think it was time. Newer clients, a lot of our clients have been with us for 30 years, and so they saw the progression, and those would be the ones that their kids are coming on board, and it's just a no-brainer. Their kids don't even want to talk to me. They want to talk to Donald, which is fine. I freeze that. Donald, I would say a lot of our longer-term clients have I don't know. They understand that I have a super high respect for his expertise, and when you respect somebody, it shows through. And they've been on. You've seen them in meetings, and I guess something that's important to interject here for your listeners, Donald. When did you go remote? There's a story about this.
Well, yeah, that's that. I mean, heck, that could be a whole nother, sentiment. But no, I met my wife in college while I was there. She was a little bit younger than me, so she was still at school. And I had moved to Dallas at 2002. And 2005, we decided to get engaged. And she graduated college, and she said, I kind of want to stay in Austin. I'm like, well, I'm in Dallas. What's that mean? And so again, John and I are really good. And I think that's a lot of it too, is like, if you're at a place that there's a good mutual respect between the two people, John never treated me as like an intern. Like he was always very good about incorporating me into, one, the business conversations, but two, client conversations, and we were kind of on equal footing. He was as encompassing, kind of bringing me in as much as he could.
He treated you like a colleague, not a subordinate.
Exactly. And so in 2005, John already knew that Randy and I were getting engaged. Like he was there. I talked to him about the ring, like all that stuff. So he knew the conversations. And so I said, look, we talked. Randy would really love to stay in Austin. What do you think about me working in Austin, but staying for the firm? And that was in 2005. I mean, remote work was not a thing that had just, really started being some weird, in a few years, you'd be able to do everything from the house. And so again, just like we kind of always did, how we did the internship, how we did coming on, we were like, let's give it a shot. We're going to try. If it works, it's going to be amazing. If it doesn't, well, we'll figure that out too. But the willingness to kind of go head first into the pool, whatever you want to say, like really has been a kind of cornerstone to the firm and our partnership. And so from 2005 on, I have not been back at our Dallas office. I've been remote ever since. And it's allowed, me to have a family. It's allowed me to create a life with my wife and my kids. We're in Houston now because, my wife wanted to go to law school. So we came here, and it's allowed the flexibility, but to still have, all my working, focus on the firm and the clients and what that means. So it's been, again, it's an amazing transition.
Back to the heart to heart where you have your back against the wall. Our biggest challenge, Caleb, was technology. It was speed, honestly, internet speed. And we were just banging our head against the wall, and we're like, I don't know what we're going to do. And just about when we're like, all of a sudden technology came along. Would you agree, Donald? It was...
Yeah, that's it. Broadband started showing up. I was in 2005, I was having to use PC Anywhere with a dial-up connection, and it worked just enough. And I think, again, luck. Meeting John, having my parents become clients, some of it is luck. It's just getting yourself in the right situation or having the situation turn out in your favor. And some of it, technology just turned the corner at the right time for me. And we were able to take advantage.
But back to your original question, and Donald was a part of those. They were phone calls. They'd be client meetings, and he would be standing by. He was a part of that. Well, fast forward to post-COVID. Nobody even wants to. Clients don't want to drive, rightfully so. They want to come. New clients want to come into the office. When we have new clients in, he's on a nice TV, and we'll make the introduction. It's good to see. It's not even an issue. It's actually, I think it's kind of like a cell phone. If you don't have one, if you don't have a way to do virtual, then people would look at you funny. And to answer your question, over that period of time, I included Donald as much as possible, and we do not throw anybody under the bus as a firm. You don't make anybody look good if you say, oh, well, the mail did this. You just got to get it done. There's certainly problems, and I've always had that, and I think we've always had a kind of an agreement, just get the work done. That's all we need to do. And, as life has gotten busier and it's more virtual, the hardest thing that we have is trying to keep up when everybody, I'm on I'm running to a meeting after this. And then Donald's got, it's just making sure our schedules sync in today's environment. But back in the day, it's not a 9 to 5 thing. It's just getting the work done.
You guys were early adopters and you didn't even realize it on all this stuff. I remember I remember in 2009 when I first started the recruiting firm, like calling people in college, like college students, and explaining to them how we were going to get on this Skype video call.
Oh no! Are you serious?
They had no, they were like clue, like what? I mean, and look at we are now. I mean, to both your points. So, well, I mean, and also Donald, you said something, but I didn't want you to sort of diminish. I mean, the attitude that you have, hey, I'll do anything, John. I'll drive up there. I will file. I'm a UT business student, school student. Like nothing is beneath me. I'm happy to do that. I think John saw that. Yeah. Did you guys get lucky on some stuff? But you delivered. I mean, he throws the CFA thing out there. You go pass it. You go do it. I mean, that's what the candidates and the people that have success that's what they do. I mean, it's just a different mindset. And like some candidates that call me, it's like, wait a minute, like, well, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm not going to do that unless John agrees that he's going to hire me. I mean, that's a totally different mindset.
Right. And I think that's what, at least for me, I think that mindset has to be, especially if you're trying to make this your career, especially for anybody, if you're coming out of college and you're trying to start your book of business, which that's a whole challenge in itself. I feel like you have to be willing to do anything. I mean, especially if someone as, prospect from a client standpoint is coming to you and say, why am I going to give you my hard-earned assets? You have to be willing to put in as much work as possible. There isn't I'm here at 8, I'm here at 5, leaving at 5, like, put it on behind you. I mean, we fortunately try and not think about it at home, try not to bring work home, but you're in these people's lives for so many years. And if you really want to be good at this job, you have to have that mentality of you're going to be around for the long haul. You're going to be watching these clients have families, have grandchildren, retire. I mean, if you want to be a planner, that should be your goal. Like you want to be in the entire life cycle of this person. And that you have to have that work ethic. You have to want to do the grunt work if it needs to be done, because that's going to show the respect I feel like that you have for these people's lives, that it needs that grunt. It needs that kind of dedication to these people. They're the whole reason you're in the business. I feel like that's where your brain space kind of has to be if you want to be a good planner or a good advisor.
And this probably maybe speaks to your audience. I was thinking about this when Donald was going through that. I mean, to come out of school and expect to just have people trust you with their life, it is not going to happen. That you have to earn that. And there's so many different facets of this industry that you may not be frontward speaking. Donald's really good at frontward speaking. That person may not be. But I will say, by having the ability to do something like this, and I Donald has done this, is very helpful to wherever your career path may go. But you're affecting people's lives greatly. In our opinion, if you're doing something right, you're a resource. Sometimes at 9:00 at night on Sunday when they're having a problem, that you could take a lot of stress off of them, and you take that stress, but you've got to earn that right. And Donald's clearly earned it. I've earned it through years and years, but new people coming out of the industry, you're just not going to learn all of that right out of school. You may know the tax is better than both of us or some obscure thing, but we're going to know the land of hard knocks. And I think that's earned. And I would try and set people up to expect that you've got to spend some time earning that. I may have got off topic, but hopefully that'll be important to some of the people that may listen to this.
And maybe as we're just kind of winding down, and this has been great, guys. I really appreciate y'all coming on and sharing this. I mean, you two guys, I think you got a couple other people at the firm. I mean, how many families do you serve? And then where are you trying to go from here?
So we have about 100. We have 116 families. We're not trying to be the biggest firm in the world. That's not our goal. This tax season, with the merger of TD Ameritrade and Schwab, we actually turned away a lot of people because we couldn't service our current clients. And those people went to other places. And I think our most important thing is, this came up in the throes, January, February, March, of we don't want to compromise taking care of what we've promised our current clients at the expense of bringing in new clients. So we certainly want new clients, but we're not out there. Our goal is not to be, we frequently said, what if we had, 15,000 accounts? It'd be trouble. So we're certainly looking forward to having the next generation technology. Donald's reviewing, this is a perfect example. Donald's reviewing some potential new software and technology that is going to add a headcount for. It'll be one less person that we would have to hire. I heard somebody say this a few years ago, and it seems like, I know that's maybe not what your candidates want to hear, but they need to have the reality. Technology is moving out, and I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking about the all-encompassing. It's allowing us to all do more. I expect over time we'll have higher headcounts, but that way we have some loose relationships with some other firms that when they retire, we're going to stay private. We want to stay multi-generation. I always say we have 5 bullets. I have 2 kids and Donald has 3 to pass the firm down, and hopefully out of those 5, we'll continue to be more of a high-touch office, but grow, but not massive growth. And Donald, I'll hush and let you put in your 2 cents.
Selective growth, I feel like, is probably the key word for us. We've done a really good job making sure we were the right fit together and managing that. And I think we pass along that same respect to clients and knowing there's a right fit. You may not be our ideal candidate. We may not be your ideal financial planning firm. And we may not be the right fit for you. And I think honesty is huge in this business. And especially starting out, you have to trust the relationship and know, whether you're trying to get an internship, whether you're trying to go out and right from day one, start your own firm, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust the clients you're bringing on and do it for the right reasons and realize that not everybody is right for everybody. I mean, fortunately, again, our relationship, our business side of things was a good fit and has turned out to be a tremendous partnership. Now, that doesn't mean every client we've had has done that. And I think as we've been together as a firm, we've realized, okay, this firm can help this client better than we can help this client. And we've been willing to pass that on to colleagues and refer, colleagues' business that, look, y'all's firm is, I think, amazingly set up to manage this person's life and what they're looking for. And I think as much as the business is a relationship business between advisors and clients, the business is a relationship business between advisors and advisors. I think getting yourself out there to, networking and exposing yourself to other advisors is a huge networking thing that maybe, probably coming out of college, you may not be aware that that's something as necessary as it is in this business. Doctors, that kind of stuff. Like, you just go to school, you plow through, you have to do the extra work in school, and things just kind of happen. Like, there's a process. I feel in planning, you have to be your own best advisor to put yourself in the right networking groups, the right client base, the right firm base. You kind of have to plan it out yourself a little bit too. You have to be as hardworking as you want your clients to see. You have to kind of do that to get your own foot in the door too, I think.
We've documented the success and the relationship and the partnership that's obviously worked very well, and kudos for that. But John said earlier, you guys have been through a lot. I mean, what's been something that hasn't worked, or maybe better, how do you guys handle disagreements?
I think it's conversation. We talk so much. We spend more time behind the scenes, probably more time than clients even actually realize, talking about the goals, the strategies, the plans. And as great as our partnership is, and we probably, I wouldn't say we disagree more than we agree, but it's not like we're 100% aligned on every single decision. There are a lot of conversations where John makes his argument and it's better than my argument. And I was like, you know what, that makes sense. Like, I feel like that is the right decision or the right path. And then there's other times where my conversations and my reasoning and logic make sense and John agrees. So you got to be willing to talk it out, whether it's to a client and not. And I think our clients would agree too. Like, just because we say it doesn't mean it's right. Like, we have a conversation. It's a two-way street. I don't think you can come into this business as a dictator and say, it's my way or the highway. Like, this is how you have to come to my firm as a client. This is what we're going to do, because it isn't cookie cutter. Not every situation is going to be the same plan regardless. And so you have to be willing to have your mind changed because the other points are more valid and more fitting to the situation. And I think that's all based on conversation.
I would add to that, we rarely have arguments, and I think we both have a mutual respect for each other. He'll override my decision on things that he knows, and I may override decisions that I know, but it's never just my way or the highway. And it's interesting now, we've matured, and with clients, sometimes we'll have an open dialogue live with the clients in this venue, talking it out, and we find that just, hey, what about this? What about this? Because we're really getting into the nitty gritty, and clients, we find that really appreciate that. We are not in an argument ever. I think it's a mutual respect for it's back to we never throw anybody under the bus, no one under the bus, and that's because whatever the client, their perspective is, it's as us as a firm and a team, and certainly seek out each other's opinion.
This has been, again, great. I really appreciate the time and you guys coming on here. Donald, I want to kind of end with you, then we'll come to you, John. Just any final tips, any suggestions or ideas? I mean, we've covered a lot of good ground, and I hope our audience will get something out of this. I know I sure have. But any tips you want to leave our audience with? I
mean, I really think we haven't gotten to share this, really outside of our bubble. And I know we spoke a decade ago and did some FPA stuff together about this, but really you got to be willing to do the work. And that's kind of a life lesson I feel like, we've talked to clients' kids about. Like, there is a little bit of a generational gap now where there is some expectation of things being handed to you or just situations being handed to you and you just run with it. But my success has been due to the hard work and willing to roll up your sleeves and do whatever needs to be done to one, get the job done, but to kind of prove to your clients that you're there for them. You can do this. Like, you're going to be calm, you're going to be collected, you're going to think analytically about things and really take, like John said, take their stress off their shoulders, put it on yours, but be reasoned and be, kind of calm about what you're getting into and how to get through the plan. But hard work always pays off. No matter, it may not be in the first job, it may not be the first person you meet, but if you're willing to work hard, that attitude is going to come through. And, like I said, networking is huge. So just because the fit wasn't right with that internship or that advisor that you get paired with, that doesn't mean he may not know someone that you're going to be a better fit for, or 5 years down the road, they're like, oh, what about, so-and-so, he really did a good job, but it wasn't the right fit, but let's see where they are now. Maybe they can help you guys out or something like that. Don't burn a bridge. Networking is amazing in this industry. And I think the willingness to put in the work is going to really come through. And I think that this industry is about hard work, and you can't be someone's go-to from a financial life standpoint or really a life standpoint if you're not willing to do that hard work. I mean, that's what's necessary, I feel like, from really an advisor standpoint anyways.
John, what about you? Any final tips you want to leave us with?
Yeah, for your audience, I would say this is what we talked about is a bit more narrow because we're a smaller firm. This is a wide industry. Be very, very honest with yourself and find what you really like. There's something in this industry that will make you happy and have fun. And the faster that you can find that, you'll find you wake up. Yeah, not every day is happy day. We all have good and bad days. But if you can find out what you really like, you are going to be successful because it won't be work. Yes, it's work, but it's fun work. I think I can speak for Donald. I enjoy every day. Sometimes it's too long, sometimes it's a hassle, but that's because we found what we like to do. And I think we found our posts within a firm. It's out there, be really honest with yourself as quick as you can, and that'll get you longevity. Whether it's behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, quicker you can do that. I think that's your key to success.
Thanks so much for coming on the show, guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Caleb. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the New Planner Podcast. If you're ready to discover the top career paths for financial planners and see which track is best for you, we created a free guide to help you. Grab your copy of the Financial Planner Career Roadmap at newplannerrecruiting.com/roadmap. There, you'll also find more tools and resources all created to help you build a successful financial planning career. Tune back in next week for another episode, and until then, we're here to help you succeed.